Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. Each week, this group of hunky, hairy, huggable homos get together to review movies, both current and classic, and sometimes talk about movie news, which we'll do tonight, touching on big news from the world of movies. And this week, we have some of that. This week, we'll also be reviewing Long Shot. It's the newly released dramedy, maybe, starring Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen. And yes, we'll be diving into several big items that are kind of all related in the world of movie news. But first, here's another very important person on the show tonight, my co-host. You know him as Will Lindis. Hey, Will.
Hey, Jim. Hey, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Exhausted, but good. It's
Yeah.
been a full weekend here in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I've seen some of that on Facebook. You were entertaining this weekend.
Oh my goodness! But it was delightfully so.
Yeah.
I had two events happening at the same time. A couple of friends came into town from my hometown because one of them was celebrating his birthday, and then a couple of other really dear friends of mine were visiting from Paris, and so I spent some time with the hometown boys, and I spent some time with the Parisian boys, right. And then back to the hometown boys, then back to the Parisians, and it was such a delightfully full. I ended up taking a day off of work on Monday, made it a long weekend, but I somehow managed to be able to squeeze a movie in there as well, so that we could review tonight.
Mm-hmm. So just boys, and boys, right? So and movies. I mean,
and movie.
You got to see the movie we're going to talk about tonight. Before we go any further, though. We'll get into that a little more. Our regular MBP host, our rock, typical master of ceremonies, MC of the show, guiding light, movie companion, usual kicker off of the show, and third bear, who you know as Brad, unfortunately couldn't join us tonight for the recording of the show. Bummer, due to work commitments. That's a big boo for work commitments. So that's right. It's just the two of us. You just hear Will and I tonight.
It's a two-hander.
It's a two-hander for the second show or second show in a month or something. I don't know. We had another two-hander earlier. Yeah, it was a couple shows ago, right? But hopefully, if we can kind of hold it together like we have in the past and keep the shiny side up till the end of the show, I think we'll be all right.
I think it'll it's I always love it best when it's the three of us because we have an energy, and I love talking with both of you. But I do enjoy the conversations, Jim, where when we have to just do it alone. I enjoy the conversations that we have as well, and I hope that translates over to listeners enjoying what we have as well. There will be less puns this week, but there will definitely be some movie discussion.
Yeah, since probably 50%, probably like 70% of our puns come from Brad and 0 from me. You always get some in there, so maybe you'll have some.
I've scaled back. I'm this could be a 2-hour pun off if I didn't back off from time to time. So,
So did you got to see this movie, Long Shot, which we'll talk about in a little while after movie news? But did you also see Avengers Endgame one more time? Did I see that?
I didn't get a chance to.
Okay.
Wanted to very much, but I ended up having some other things to do. But I did send the Parisians off to go see it.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. I saw the guys who were with you at the movies. I'm like, wait a minute. How did that happen? How did Will not bring them to the movies?
I was doing I jumped back over to do birthday breakfast with the other group. Like I said, it was crazy. Almost like those fitting for this type of show, since we're about to talk about a rom-com, but those romantic comedies where the guy takes two different people to the same dinner or the same date, and he has to run over here and do something, and then he runs over there and does something with the other date, and he runs back, and he's just at the end well, that was my weekend.
Yeah, it was all good
in the best way possible.
Yeah, sounds like it was all fun.
You've got some fun trips coming up ahead of you, I know, as well.
We do. We're going to be in California for Chub Fest in Palm Springs. this coming weekend, and then I got a work trip in between, and we got it's just kind of crazy right now for us too. It's funny how like you have in your mind like, oh, I'm so damn busy right now, and it's all good, and it's good to be busy, but like next month I think things are going to calm down. I think next month things will settle down, and you get to next month and you're like, holy shit, how'd I get this busy?
Next month both never comes and always comes way too quickly by those
I know.
descriptors. Some of the good trips that we have coming up, though, I will be in Tucson this very weekend, where I'm going to get a chance to spend some time with, of course, you and Brad and special guests, Magic Mike Lovins, which will be a blast to get that group together. Will be so much fun. It's always good to see you guys, and then I'm off to Chicago in June we're there to play Pokemon is what we're gonna do. We're doing Pokemon. We're doing Pokemon Go Fest with some of the Chicago boys.
Oh, so, wow, that'll be good.
So it's that same thing. As soon as you said like, oh, next month will be easier, I thought, oh yeah, next month will wait, no. So I'm doing that.
Yeah.
So we'll figure all the schedule stuff out.
And we'll get another show out, right? Is the next movie going to be Pokemon Go?
Next movie is Detective Pikachu.
I'm sorry, duh.
Next week I will be seeing
how much I'm into it.
I'm in love with that because I'm going to see next week. I'm going to see Detective Pikachu with you and with Brad, who has some affinity for the franchise, and you who like
have no clue.
And that's not a bad thing. Like it's going to be exciting to see both viewpoints.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to going and seeing the movie with you two guys because I know you're super jazzed about it. Everything I know about Pokemon, could probably take up like a minute and a half conversation. That's about it. So
we'll teach you the Poke Rap.
So it'll be fun, like two experts like leading along, this guy who doesn't know much. But anyway, so we've got a movie to get to, and we've got a bunch of movie news to talk about. So what do you say we kick off some movie news, Will? What do you think?
You know what? I haven't heard the movie news stinger in a little bit of in a while. So yeah. I'm excited. So
all right,
let's hear it.
All right. Well, hang on. Here we go. It's time for some movie news. Ta! That's awesome. All right. So we got some movie news, Will. I'm going to let you kind of take the lead on this because there was just today, there was a whole bunch of news that came out. It was all over the internet. My Twitter was lit up. Some stuff on Facebook about some releases from Disney. I'm going to let you take it away because there's probably kind of an order we might want to talk about this stuff in. We have a lot of, we just had the Avengers Endgame, right? Which kind of ended a phase of the MCU, and people are like, what the fuck is next? What's coming up? Well, we're going to talk about that right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to start because all of this is Disney news. So the three big franchises that we're about to talk about in terms of their upcoming schedule, and by upcoming, I mean over the course of the next over the course of the next decade, are the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Star Wars, and the Avatar franchises.
The Star Wars.
Yeah. All owned by mega corporation Disney. They released their long-term plan, and there were some interesting tidbits on there. Starting with Marvel. So through the last few years, Marvel Cinematic Universe has had a 3-film per year policy. Usually that's something like a May film, a July film, and a November film, plus or minus a few weeks. This year, of course, we had that with Captain Marvel, then Avengers Endgame, and then going into, and you're probably hearing some thunder right now. I apologize if that comes through. Yes, spooky. Or it's raining in Austin. Yeah. But Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, and then the upcoming Spider-Man Far From Home, which the new trailer dropped for this week.
That's right.
Go into it. If you're going to watch the trailer for it, just be mindful it's spoilery for Avengers. So next year, they're scaling back a little bit. They are going to only do 2 films in 2020. After that, 2021, they're looking, and 2022, they're going to go back to the 3 film per year. schedule. Now, what's interesting is with the 2020 news for Marvel, they haven't announced what those films are going to be yet. So everything is very much in sort of speculation land. Although the two films that are most likely to hit are going to be the Black Widow movie, which is the closest to that stage of production. It's already got some casting, which includes not just Black Widow, but we've got a director attached, Kate Shortland, and we've got a few additional actors and actresses attached, including Francis Pugh Pudge. I hate that I don't know how to pronounce her name. Pugh, yeah. Who is recently in Fighting with My Family and has been some other nice things as well. That one is more than likely going to hit in 2020, as well as The Eternals, which Chloe Zhao, director of The Writer, is attached to, as well as Angelina Jolie and Kumail Nanjiani, as well as a few other stars. So they're not confirmed for next year, but they're the two that have directors, casts, and apparently, from what the buzz is saying, scripts pretty well locked down. So we're likely looking at those. Anyone that's looking for Guardians of the Galaxy 3 news, it's going to be more if it's like a 2021 more than likely, just because things got pushed back because of the whole who's going to direct it. James Gunn is out. James Gunn is in kerfuffle. So we're probably looking a little further out there. But two movies to look forward to next year. One starring a director who you have an affinity for, right?
Yes.
Chloe Zhao.
I love The Writer and Chloe Zhao's movie. But the jump from that movie to a Marvel movie just seems like incredible, like two totally different tones of movies. It's going to be very interesting to see. I just can't think off the top of my head of like a director from one type of movie. And she does, of course, she's a very young director, so she doesn't have a ton of feature film experience. I think maybe just The Writer might have, no, she did Songs My Brother Taught Me. I think there might have been one more, can't think of the name of it. Anyway, but she had just a couple of really small, quiet, indie flavored films, and now she's jumping to the biggest leagues you can get into right now, which is the MCU. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
If it helps, Jim, those are the only two feature films she's
those
done.
were the two.
You didn't forget one. You're good.
Okay. All right. So yeah, and then I'm looking forward to Guardians 3. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wait till 2021. But we got three Marvel movies that year. I'm seeing Marvel movies like all the way to the middle of 2022 right now. That's what I see kind of on the schedule.
That gives us at least the next 8 of them, because the 2 for 2020 and then the 3 for 21 and the 3 for 22. And usually about that many films is a phase. So more than likely that somewhere in there is what we'll call phase 4, which we don't know what the grand theme unifying it's going to be, if there is going to be one, if it's going to be as intense as the last one, if it's going to be more subtle. We don't know yet.
Or maybe it's just scattered one-offs, we don't know.
If you think about it, that's sort of how phase 1 was for Marvel. Like, it was a bunch of scattered one-offs with the idea of, and also Nick Fury shows up and talks to people. So I think that we're probably in store for something like that. I don't think they're going to hit the ground running with some sort of elaborate connections. I think they're going to, since this is a reset, this is their chance to sort of like slow roll back up.
It does feel like a reset, but the fun with Marvel, it's just going to keep going. I mean, we have the Spider-Man movie coming up. In a month?
It's very soon. I don't remember the exact release date. I know tickets just went on sale for it. So, and I haven't bought them yet.
And the trailer just came out today, which I did finally get to watch. So that's got people really excited. By the way, I think this is the first trailer I think I've seen where at the beginning of the trailer, there's a spoiler warning.
Well, if you think,
you know, I don't know if I remember anything quite. I mean, this is quite an overt. Like, I think Tom Holland, right, gets up in the front and he gives an actual spoiler warning. Like, if you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, you will be spoiled by the trailer for the new Spider-Man movie.
I think that's probably wise here because I think,
it is.
you know, like this is a sort of in rare territory where the trailer for essentially the epilogue piece is coming out while the film that it wraps up is still in theaters. You know, if this
barely past the second weekend, right?
Yeah. So if we were talking about like if the trailer was coming out like, I don't know, a month from now, that probably wouldn't be necessary. But I mean, there's still people who don't see movies on first weekend or second weekend. They kind of catch it when and where they can. They fill in the cracks. So I think the spoiler warning was pretty wise on this one.
Yeah, I think so too. I didn't say it wasn't wise. I just said it's unique to see something like that. For
absolutely. No, I mean you're right. Like this is what Marvel is doing with spoiler awareness is unprecedented and appreciated.
Yes, especially in the last few weeks, it's been kind of crazy. That's another whole episode, but. We have more movie release news, Will, don't we?
We really do.
What do we have coming up?
Let's talk about, and I'm going to sort of weave these two together just because the announcement was sort of weaved together. Okay. But Star Wars and Avatar have both announced a sort of an aggressive plan of movies to come. Star Wars has a new trilogy that's coming out. Now, Disney is not telling us at all what this trilogy is going to be. It could be the one that Rian Johnson is on board for. It could be the one that David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are also in the works for a trilogy. We don't know. But we do know our release dates. So we've got an untitled Star Wars movie coming out on December 16th, 2022. We have an untitled Star Wars movie coming out December 20th, 2024. And we have an untitled Star Wars movie coming out December 18th, 2026. So every 2 years, starting in 2022, the new trilogy comes out. This is interesting in and of itself, but at the same time as this announcement was made, they also announced that there are going to be 4 more Avatar movies. You know, James Cameron, Pandora, Avatar, biggest box office ever, maybe Endgame might take it, question mark. Well, he's got 4 more of these movies in the works. Avatar 2 is hitting December 17th of 2021. Avatar 3 is December 22nd of 2023. Avatar 4 is December 19th of 2025. And Avatar 5 is December 17th of 2027. So if you were very keen there and you picked up on all of this, every like second or third week of December.
Yep. For the next 8 years.
It's going to go Avatar, Star Wars, Avatar, Star Wars, Avatar, Star Wars, Avatar. Every December, we have one of those 2 franchises, whether it be even years for Star Wars, odd years for Avatar. Of course, this is starting 2021. We have a new Star Wars movie coming out this year in 2019. What I'm not sure what we're going to have yet is 2020 itself. It looks like all of these big franchises are sort of waiting to kick off. So we're not going to have a crazy 2020 December film from Disney.
No.
Not exactly hating that.
We're still recovering from the snapping, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they do have the live action Cruella de Vil movie coming out December 2020. So maybe they're just kind of banking on that to tide us over. Not me, but that's a different subject.
Well, and looking at the schedule, I see like the next, like 2021 and 2022 look like almost like carbon copies of the same cadence of movies in terms of the type of movie that that's coming out in each time slot. You have basically it goes, Marvel, Pixar, Marvel, Disney live action, Pixar. You know what I mean? It's like, and then it wraps up the end of the year with either an Avatar or a Star Wars movie. The other thing that's interesting to notice is that we haven't had an Avatar movie in how long now? Like When was the last like real Avatar movie? I don't even remember when that.
So there's just been the one, and it was a while ago. I don't remember the date because I'm one of those people who remembers so little about that damn movie.
I know, but and then we're gonna get one every 2 years. I don't know if, and we don't know what's gonna happen with those movies. We don't know what Cameron's. I don't know if Cameron's gonna be director on all of those movies. We don't know. I'm not sure we know that yet. He'll probably be involved as some kind of producer or executive producer all the way through, but yeah, he'll be a busy guy. He'll be stepping up his production from like once every 15 years to once every 2 years or something.
I think and I could be wrong on this, let me know if I am, but I think that he is doing the direction and the writing on all of those because they're doing some of the shooting concurrently. And so he's just going to be the writer, director, and like guiding vision for all of these, which means if James Cameron was sweating Marvel taking over the big figure spots, he's about to strike back with some films of his own.
Oh, it's pretty awesome. There's a lot of big movies in there. I mean, this doesn't even mention a lot of the other studios, a lot of the other big movies that we're looking forward to. I see one on here I don't recognize, and I'm going to have to look up in early 2021 called Nimona.
So I'm not sure what that is as well. It was a previous. I do know it was a previous Fox film. So one of the things that happened was Disney absorbed Fox, right? And so one of the big things they've been doing as part of this announcement as well has been sort of laying out what they're going to be doing with all the Fox properties that were either in production or announced. Some of which, in fact, most of which, the Fox films ended up getting some sort of rescheduling. And all of that rescheduling is generally based on not having it compete against the Disney proper films, which the Fox films were originally positioned to do. And that makes sense. I don't begrudge them that. They own these properties, they're moving things around. For example, the New Mutants film, which is originally supposed to be April 2018, which got pushed to August of this year, is now April 2020. So you're going to see a lot of those. Death of the Nile got moved back a week in October 2020. We've got some films that have been completely ditched. Like Fox had a Gambit movie, which is part of the X-Men franchise, that was slated for, I believe, 2020, and it's been absolutely scrapped. So it's just off the schedule. They're not going to do anything with it now. And to give you an idea, Nimona, this is all based on what I'm looking at.
I looked it up too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's you know what? I should have known this. It's based on the webcomic by Noelle Stevenson.
It looks like it's been pushed out a year.
So interesting thing about this, that particular webcomic and series is by Noelle Stevenson, who is the she's written some great comics, but she's also the showrunner for the new She-Ra cartoon. And so that's what that particular film is. But yeah, it got pushed back. And again, they probably didn't want it to compete with whatever else. Actually, there's nothing really happening around that time. I don't know why they pushed it back.
Yeah.
But who knows?
A lot of reasons for that.
Yeah.
As we've seen, but
now thanks for bringing that name up, because now I've gone from not knowing what Nimona is to caring desperately about whether I get to see it or not. So yay for this list, I guess. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I love the showrunner for it. That's part of it.
Gotcha. Well, yeah. So there's a lot of exciting movie news, a lot of scheduling going on. And it looks like a lot of the Disney tentpole films are kind of staked out for us now. And we'll just have to kind of wait for the announcements of what some of those titles are. So something to look forward to for sure.
And these things will move more and more and more.
Yeah.
Like realistically, once they start fleshing out the rest of their schedule, we're going to see some things adjust. But I think this was Disney basically more than anything saying, don't worry about Star Wars. Now that Star Wars is wrapping up, we've got you covered. Don't worry about Marvel. Now that the Marvel Endgame happened, or Avengers Endgame happened, we've got you covered. You know that Avatar thing you've been hearing about? Well, now there's something concrete. You know that Fox thing that everyone's been hearing and talking about? Well, here's some details on that. This was Disney basically just appealing to everybody, making sure that everyone is feeling comfortable and safe with their films, which means the shareholders are happy. It's all business, and I get it.
Yeah. Well, Will, those are the movies of tomorrow. How about we talk about a movie of right now? You ready?
I salute that idea.
Okay. So the front of the show, we said we're going to talk about a new movie, and here we go. We're going to jump right in to a new movie called Long Shot. Okay, Will, why don't you kick us off for Long Shot? This movie that got its world premiere, I think, at South by Southwest.
Absolutely, and I think that's the place where I'd like to start with it. This is part of the South by Southwest line of films, and it's always exciting to see so many delightful films here in my backyard in Austin, and to host you guys as you come all the way across the Southwest to come visit me as we check out the latest and greatest in comedy, drama, and horror. And part of that comedy slate this year was Long Shot. Long Shot is a romantic comedy which stars Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen in its lead roles. Charlize Theron is she is the current Secretary of State for the president, and she's being tapped to run for president. She hasn't made the announcement yet, but she's getting the pieces in place to make that bid. Along the way, she reunites with a kind of a firebrand journalist and writer who is in between jobs, and who knows the Charlize Theron's character from their childhood. He gets brought on board as one of her speechwriters, and then the two of them develop a will they, won't they type thing as career and romance sort of collide in some interesting ways. This is a pretty interesting movie that has some really interesting and fun things to say, that has some moments of genuine sincerity and has some moments of genuine comedy that work. And it also has some elements that didn't quite work for me as well, which means that it falls in sort of a I kind of recommend it category. And I think that that's actually pretty good for a lot of romantic comedies. So I want to start by saying that. The jokes, about half of the time, they really land for me. I feel like there's a moment when there are moments where Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron's characters are sort of vibing off of one another, and I liked that. I genuinely liked the chemistry between the two. I genuinely felt like they enjoyed being around each other on set, which I don't know if that's true or not, but there was some chemistry between the two of them, and that's a big part of the romantic comedy. I think Charlize Theron is one of the greatest actresses of ours or any generation, and so it almost feels a little limp to just say like Charlize Theron's acting was really good in this. But hey, guys, Charlize Theron's acting was really good in this, and I think at moments Seth Rogen's was as well. I don't know that he's necessarily a powerhouse actor, but I think he delivered what he needed to. The points I have against this film. It's long. Jim and I were talking about this off air. Like I saw it just today and I was thinking like, oh, there's no way this movie's over 2 hours. And the movie was over 2 hours and it kind of feels it in a couple of spots.
Yeah.
And it introduces some weird subplots that don't really go anywhere. For example, the film is, for being a thing about someone running for president, it's mostly apolitical. Yeah, there's like a plot going on about getting people to sign on with this particular policy and, you know, how passionate people are for it. But you could substitute that in for any policy. But there's a certain point where out of nowhere, one of the side characters of the film starts to introduce the idea of like centrism, like, oh, if you're too far left or if you're too far right, that's bad. And you should be a centrist instead. And here's why. And that storyline goes absolutely nowhere. So it felt to me like the film wanted to say something about that, but it didn't know what it wanted to say. And I think you could have chopped you could chop all of the actual politics out of this and just kind of stick it to the political background trappings and have had a tighter, cleaner movie, because I don't think the film knew how to handle the politics stuff. It also had some pretty big logic jumps for me in the way people responded to certain things. We'll talk about those in spoilers, but it's a light recommend. I think the laughs are there, the sincerity is there, the sweetness is there. You get the things that you want out of a rom-com. You get exactly that. You don't get any more, but sometimes that's enough.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of with you, Will. I think I might have liked it a little bit more than you, and we'll talk about. I also have some notes from Brad's reaction, so I'm going to share those. He sent me some notes. We talked about it after we saw it last night. So, yeah, Long Shot was one that kind of snuck up on me. I really enjoyed it, and so I'm watching the movie, and Seth Rogen. We've seen Seth Rogen in a lot of movies, usually over the top comedies. This is a movie where Seth Rogen actually tones down a lot of his, I think, over the topness, and I think there's a sweet spot to his, to kind of the way he portrays characters that falls somewhere in the less than over the top Seth Rogen. At least for my tastes, I think I like this form of Seth Rogen better than kind of the crazy, just kind of everything turned up to 11 kind of comedic character, right? I think one movie that kind of both Brad and I talked about right after this movie was a movie called 50-50 with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Seth Rogen back from 2013. And oh, by the way, guess who directed both movies? The same guy.
Guy.
Yeah, Jonathan Levine or John Levine. I forget what Jonathan Levine. Yep. So these two have the same DNA, these movies, and you could definitely feel it. And I think for the betterment of this movie, if you ask me, I really enjoyed this movie. Charlize Theron is amazing. And even though I know she's amazing and I like her, she still surprised me in this movie with her like comedic chops and how she could kind of play both sides of the story, right? You have the story of a very serious, you have kind of a very serious plot. She's the Secretary of State and she's trying to maybe make a bid for the presidency of the United States. So she's positioning herself and her, her platform and her, what she stands for. And Will touched on it. There's some policies that she's championing, some of which probably could have been cut out, but I found it interesting to see how, to see it portrayed on screen, how somebody who's maybe super idealistic about certain policies, sometimes there has to be some, and of course in today's politics, it's probably way worse than it's even portrayed in this movie. There has to be some compromises made. And it was kind of sad to see that happen because you have this character that, you could get behind if they were a real, you maybe get behind if they were a real political candidate, kind of see how it can turn from, somebody you really want to get behind to somebody like who you see them maybe kind of selling out a little bit. And the Seth Rogen character role plays is kind of highlights that for us, right? He points that out because it really hurts him. He's another idealist, being a former journalist. But I really like this movie a lot. Again, I think it's too long for kind of a rom-com for what it is. I was surprised. We went to an early showing last night about 5:00, thinking we'd get out and have time for dinner and all that stuff. And we got out, and it's like, holy shit! We went in there at like 5:00 and didn't get out till like 7:30 or something like that, and is very strange. So I think this movie could have been trimmed up a little bit. We get into spoilers. There's some stuff we can talk about maybe some of those areas, but trying to think of anything else in this movie that really kind of stood out. 90s soundtrack, right?
The 90s soundtrack, nostalgic soundtrack. Yeah,
it was pretty good. And it kind of wove the soundtrack and some of the songs into the story, and I like how I liked how it did that. And then I think back to 50-50 and think that it actually did the same exact thing. So I'm kind of liking it. I think I'm gonna, kind of put this guy Jonathan Levine's name in my mind, and look for the next thing he does, because I think this seems to be his wheelhouse. And I think, like I said, I really like this film a lot. Maybe just a little bit more than you will.
Did you see The Night Before?
I did not see that one. That was the Christmas one with Seth Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yeah.
Yeah, and also directed by
Jonathan Levine.
So right. When you said that you're putting him on your radar, I was thinking like maybe you should see that one too. Just sort of like complete the Seth Rogen trilogy.
I probably should, although that movie looked a little bit more over the top. I think I don't know. I might have been turned off by the trailer of that. I mean, holiday Christmas movie, holiday movies kind of have to. I don't know. It's not my
they have to feature worse Santas.
Yeah, exactly. Really bad Santas. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we should mention some of the other folks in this movie. We had Bob Odenkirk in this movie, who plays the president.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Serkis in this movie.
Andy Serkis was interesting because he basically did so this Andy Serkis, everyone knows him as Gollum, and like even though he's played like in the flesh characters more often in movies, like with Ulysses Claw and Black Panther, he's known for his like character work, his CGI work, and here we get to see him play a what's his name, Wimberly, who's Parker Wembley, who is like essentially like the Rupert Murdoch, Steve Bannon type of the universe.
He's the antagonist.
He is the news magnate who represents all that is bad in politics, and of course he's like this very large, imposing, kind of grotesque dude with like big gray hair and just like just kind of sort of looks like he's like melted ice cream, if I'm gonna borrow a phrase.
Wow.
And to the point where like I at the end of this movie, I saw his name pop up on the credits, and I thought, oh shit, I guess that was him. I didn't have a read on who was playing the guy.
No, I didn't have any clue at all. And but of course, Andy Serkis plays a lot of characters in movies, but you seldom get to see like his real face, right? So it's interesting. You see his name pop up, but you may not know which character he's playing because it's not recognizable, right? He's like a chameleon. He could show up in any role and you'd almost believe it. So O'Shea Jackson is in this one as well, who his role here was okay. I think he plays Seth Rogen's character is Fred Flarsky, and I think he plays Fred's best friend, right?
Yes, and he was the one I mentioned sort of before, where he has sort of the biggest wasted story subplot in that. When he first showed up on screen, I love O'Shea Jackson. And I think that he does some pretty solid work. And the first scenes that he's in this movie are really good. Like I think that he added some of the levity to the early parts of this movie when everyone is still sort of like getting positioned for the meet cute. But after that, they don't know what to do with him. So he shows up just to sort of go like, just sort of to like cheer.
You should go for it. Yeah.
But also to have like this very odd centrist rant that comes out of nowhere and absolutely there's a spot in this movie where you can totally tell where he's being the writer's mouthpiece on sort of like how the writer of the script of this movie thinks we should view politics.
That might be a good place to jump in. What do you think, Will? Want to jump into spoilers, or do you have anything else to say non-spoiler?
No, I'm okay now.
Yeah? Okay. So yeah, there's some things, definitely some things in this movie we'd like to talk about in spoilers. So if you're listening to this on delay or you're watching live, you may want to skip out and come back in like 10 or 15 minutes for the plugs we'll do at the end of the show. Like to stall here and give you a little bit of time, but we're going to get into spoilers. So spoilers for Long Shot are now in play. Will, you were talking about the O'Shea Jackson character named Lance, who is Fred Flarsky's best friend. And somewhere around 3/4 of the way through the movie, there's a scene that kind of, you're right, comes out of nowhere and really doesn't go anywhere, which was kind of strange and a little off-putting. So Will, go ahead. I'm sorry I
Yeah,
interrupted you there, but I
yeah,
thought
and I don't really have anything else to really add on that particular scene. I think that, like I was saying, like he was sort of the writer's mouthpiece for like what the writer views on like the state of politics, but the subplot had nothing to do with any of the rest of the film. It was just this weird diatribe that comes out of nowhere, has nothing to do with the first half of the film, or the first 3/4 of the film, has nothing to do with the way the film resolves. It's just a scene that takes up space, and it doesn't move either of the main characters in Seth and Charlize any closer towards or away from each other. So it was such padding, and I think that there was just a little too much of that, specifically with that character. A little bit as well with there are two other like advisors for Charlize Theron.
Handlers, yeah.
One played by June Diane Raphael, the other by Ravi Patel, and the two just talk at the screen, and they talk at Charlize, but they're there to sort of play like the role of like you shouldn't do this because this will hurt your image, but Charlize never really pays attention to it, and what they say tends to be pretty much dictated by whatever's most convenient at the moment. So it always feels like they're very much there just for narrative reasons, which is fine. You need those types of things, but then they every so often get some extra lines and some extra subplots that just add nothing except for runtime. And I'm not the type that needs a lean movie. Like, if you want to give me an 8-hour movie that justifies every minute of that 8-hour movie, by all means, but I think there's some padding with these characters as well.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Those characters weren't really fully fleshed out, and yeah, you're right. You get those characters in lots of movies, but then they get these certain scenes that are just, I think, maybe put in there for laughs. I'm not sure, that just kind of really don't go anywhere. But back to the O'Shea Jackson character. So at one point, he basically comes out and tells Fred Flarsky, the Seth Rogen character, that he's a card-carrying member of the GOP. And up to this point in the movie, we may be led to think otherwise. Of course, Fred Flarsky thinks he's otherwise, and I guess I wish they had done a little bit more with that scene, because it's kind of an interesting thing, because we do get in these ways of thinking that like kind of everybody needs to think the way we think, you know what I mean? And there's something to be explored there. The movie just doesn't do it. It just presents it and then drops it, right? There's no real exploration there of why this has come up or what it's going to lead to. It's just kind of dropped, and then things kind of go back right to the way they were before it was brought up. It's just very strange.
It's a point that lands with a thud, because you can either, you can make the argument of a more centrist view of politics is important because we're all Americans and left and right should unite. There's counter arguments to be made about that works really well if a centrist point of view is more convenient to certain people that have more privilege, that they get to flex in those roles, and people that are on the fringes of society need to be protected as well, and more leftist politics is more beneficial in protecting those needs. There's a debate to be had there. I probably tip my hand on where I fall on that one, but
yeah,
the film itself did not do a very good job of arguing its point, because again, it just has one character mouthpiece it at the same time as another character. This is the Andy Serkis character, represents literally what the Seth Rogen character hates so much, right. In that sort of like right-wing control of politics and stuff like that. So even the film is very muddled in both the message it presents through its main characters, the message it presents through its supporting characters, and the message that it presents through some of those monologues. So that's why I didn't like the politics of this movie, because the film didn't know its own politics. You could have replaced the Charlize Theron was super interested in a bill about environmentalism, but literally all we know about it is that it's to protect bees, trees, and seas. That's all we know about it, and that's all we needed to know about it. Honestly, you could have replaced that with housing for the homeless. If you would just change those words to housing for the homeless, or if you would change the same discussion, you just changed up the words and said peace in other countries, or whatever it has to be, you would have the exact same film. So the actual message wasn't important, and I was okay with that. I was okay with politics being the backdrop. Leave it at C's, trees, and C's. That's all we need to know about her policies. What we need to know more about is she going to choose career or love? That's sort of what these movies are about, right? And
that's what this movie was interested in. It definitely wasn't the inconvenient truth of the Seth Rogen verse. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't think it wanted to be that, but it kept throwing out these ideas. And not doing anything with them, which is fine. The central love story, let's talk a little bit about that. So you have these two characters. Again, it's kind of a kind of opposites attract kind of thing. Seth Rogen is the kind of an idealistic journalist who's recently out of a job. He's kind of a slacker. I don't know if you could say he's a slacker, but he's definitely not the opposite of kind of uptight, I guess, person. And, Charlize Theron's character, Charlotte Field, is, in the machine. She's a politician, and she's trying to fight her way through. And they come together because they were once neighbors, and they have a little bit of history as young people, and they meet up again. And did you buy the whole the way the meet cute and everything kind of burgeoned into a love affair, Will?
I don't know.
Were you more on the side of the handlers saying, no, you need to not do this?
I kind of was, and I feel bad about that. But the whole thing, it was very manufactured, and these things tend to be like if a romantic comedy that is like, I'm a well-adjusted person with too much on his plate. I'm a well-adjusted person with too much on her plate. Hey, let's just work our schedules out because it seems like we have a lot in common and make this work. That would be a boring as fuck movie. So I get why we have these whole, they're from different worlds, they see the world very differently, and how do those things. I get why that is the staple of this genre. At the same time, it felt very forced and manufactured. There were large sections of the film where Seth is being invited to all of these very proper affairs, and he's just wearing this.
He's a goofball,
fucking shitty windbreaker. Which if you're gonna wear that when you're going,
you call that a shitty windbreaker? But at South by Southwest, they were giving those out to people in the audience, and I missed out on mine, and I was a little upset that I didn't get
Here's
mine.
The thing. I think that is a great windbreaker for almost any purpose. You're going to go down the street to grab some bagels or grab some lunch, wear that windbreaker. It's fun. It's interesting. Yeah. But if you're going to a formal dinner with heads of state, you know what? Maybe that's a good time to slap a blazer on, is all I'm saying. I think that literally any use of that blazer, including for wearing around South by Southwest, that was a cool blazer. I would have worn the hell out of that. I didn't get one, unfortunately, probably because they knew I was going to say shitty blazer or shitty windbreaker. But it goes to kind of speak to just some leaps of logic. And I mentioned these beforehand. The film feels fairly grounded in a lot of things. Polling is important. She's dealing with a lot of stress and stuff like that. And there's comedy obviously worked its way through there, but he has some kind of slapsticky, some kind of just weird, out of character schlubby moments that even feel out of place for someone who's supposed to be this journalist writing for who was apparently respected to some degree within his field. Between the way he dressed and the way he there's a scene where she's at this fancy dinner with just a lot of prime ministers and presidents. We're talking power players are there, and he comes running in this weird outfit while doing that, going, oops, sorry, oh, and steals a laptop and runs off. And her response is just well, shouldn't have done that, essentially.
What the fuck are you doing?
It wasn't seriously, the fact that she didn't lose her job right there
Yeah.
is surprising. And the fact that that wasn't addressed at all was also surprising. Like, it's like there's a whole subplot later in this film about like some embarrassing footage leaking and being used as blackmail. Honestly, if anyone just had any footage of him breaking into that dinner and kind of running out, that she goes running after him, that's way more damning for her as a politician.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we talked about their chemistry, and it's true up to a point. I thought they had really good comedic chemistry on screen. I thought they played off of each other real well. Where that stopped for me was in kind of the romantic sexual, when it kind of crossed that line. It almost would have been better for me, I think, if they never had crossed that line. Like, it was a thing that maybe was kind of, the tension was there, like the sexual tension was there, but they never actually did it. And in the movie, they did. They had a full-blown sexual thing going, and I just never bought that would happen. Is that bad that I thought that? I just didn't think that somebody of her position would perhaps throw a lot of things away to sleep with a guy like, the character of Fred Flarsky, who she gave a boner to when he was 13 or something. You know what I mean? Like, I had trouble like jumping that credibility gap, but I did like their relationship up to a point.
I may have been kind of on the other side of it, just because I didn't have as big a problem with like their sexual attraction. There were some sort of weird jokes that came with that, like, where whatever, I'm not gonna say it there, but there were some kind of like some jokes that didn't necessarily land during that. But like, I think that realistically, we've all had those like sexual attractions, and even like sexual like, man, I shouldn't have done that moments. Like, that's just human nature.
Yeah.
We're led by our impulses, and we're led by our instincts, and so I didn't necessarily fault the film for that. I was actually more thrown off by the fact that she didn't take more issue with his antics that would have affected her career. Like, I think that's the thing. Like, I think she would have, there were parts of the film where I feel like she would have been more comfortable with just sort of like having him be the equivalent of like a mistress, someone who makes her laugh and, helps get her rocks off in private while she goes and lives this more poised public life. But the thing is there were things that he was doing all through this film, not just the ones that were threatened at the end, that sort of threatened that poise. And I was surprised that she didn't take more umbrage with just how he acted more often and more readily.
Yeah, I mean, you always get that trope in these movies where you have the one character who's much more straight-laced, and then you have the other character who's kind of more worldly and relaxed and kind of unfiltered. You know what I mean? And they get together and they kind of learn from each other a little bit. That wasn't really what we got here, though. It was interesting that they just fell in love. There was no like. I don't know what her attraction was to him other than that. I mean, it didn't seem like that there was like a lifestyle that she wanted to explore with him, right?
Jim?
Yes.
Would you throw a bone to Seth Rogen?
Oh yeah. Speaking of which, I want to say one thing. So here's one thing from Brad's list.
I knew it.
Yeah. So here's his thoughts on the movie. First of all, this was like his favorite movie of the year so far. I kid you not. Like, he really, really loved this movie, and I appreciated that. I knew he would, because West Wing is one of I think he has a soft spot for political plotted dramas and now dramedies, and this one had a bit of West Wing in there, right? He's the speech writer, and they get to go on Air Force One or whatever and fly around, and it kind of gives you a little peek behind the curtain of politics, even though it's movie politics. It makes you feel like you're kind of in that machine, and I think he really loved that. He even liked this one more than Avengers, he said. So there you go. Also, back to Seth Rogen. He said, so much hairy-chested Seth Rogen in this movie. There were many shirtless scenes of Seth Rogen. We didn't get to see his butt or anything, I don't think. Brad said, "Fuck, I'm not his biggest fan, but seeing him so lovable, forthright, and bare-chested made me smile." So
I think the question would be like, if Brad were running for president, would he throw it all away for the chance to shag Seth Rogen on the sly? And I think he's not here to defend the point, but I think that he would at least entertain the notion based on what I just heard.
Could go either way on that. The longer Seth Rogen was on the screen with his hairy chest and no shirt, the more chance of that happening was probably a probability. He also said that he says maybe this thing will turn into a trilogy: long shot, longer shot, and longest shot. What do you think?
I think Brad just wants to be a
To
part
shoot.
of each.
He just
be a
wants
part
to
of
shoot.
each of those shots. Yeah.
Speaking of shots, not many mainstream movies will actually, and this is spoilers, so I can go there. Not many mainstream movies will actually show you like a facial on screen, like a self facial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He basically something about married himself.
He did, and that was like interesting to see. In the theater we saw it in, there were only 2 other people, and they seemed to enjoy the movie too. But I wonder how that would play in like a mainstream, like a full audience. I wonder how that's gonna play to people, to Mr. and Mrs. America going to see a rom-com. I think that's gonna be a little shocking.
Which reminds me of not the cum shot thing, but like the size of the audience thing. Reminds me of another South by story with this one. Just like it's part of the joy of South by is the fact that they turn these films into events. So in addition to the windbreakers and stuff, they actually had Boyz II Men come out on stage during the Q&A.
Oh, nice.
And I just think it's amazing that that South by would do that, that the film would help support that they would just make that part of an experience in a moment. I think that's always so much fun. I was definitely like, I don't know, like I was vibing to Boyz II Men, like you can't help but like their songs, especially from someone who experienced them. I was young when the songs came out.
They
but
have
like
a little nostalgia spot for you.
Yeah, they hit that nostalgia that they hit the nostalgia button and push that button. So so it's nice to see them here, and it was nice for them to come back for South by Southwest. Man, this movie was, I don't know. I came down pretty hard on it because there are issues, and I think that those issues are ones that I really wish the film had taken parts of itself either more seriously or had leaned more into its comedy. I don't think that always had the right mix. But I will say that I feel like romantic comedies often have this, I don't know how best to put this. I think that there's a stigma that comes with romantic comedies, and it's probably an unfair one because not all films have to have prestige. Not all films have to have like, are designed for like awards greatness. Sometimes they can be just sort of fun and fulfill a need the same way like an action blockbuster might, or the way like a cheesy horror midnighter might. And I think that there's something completely valid about it playing within tropes. But that said, I think some rest on their laurels within that genre. And I don't think this one necessarily did, or at least I don't think it did all of the way. I think there were some moments where it had some pretty inspired comedy. You can say what you will about Seth Rogen and his drug jokes, but there were 2 drug jokes in this movie. One as he's going into, taking all of his drugs into the White House for the first time. And then he just has some great line delivery as he's trying to get them past security. And then there's another one where they're doing ecstasy, and she's having to negotiate a
hostage situation. That was a little over the top.
It was over the top, but it was over the top, but it was really funny. And so like when something like does that, I'm willing to forgive it. It's more when it's over the top and thuds that it's like more of an issue. And that scene was really funny for me.
Yeah, it was interesting. The that scene was one that stretched my level of credibility, and because a lot of this comedy was grounded in kind of reality of the present day politics, political landscape, and kind of right wing, left wing, and a lot of the comedy came out of that kind of real world stuff, and then you put like a total like farcical scene right in the middle, and the tone is a little bit weird for me, but still, I mean, as Brad said, also like Charlize Theron is very beautiful, and her like she definitely has like this presence on the screen, like where her like warmth kind of shows right through, and I was like, I could totally get behind her as a a political candidate, not just based on her looks, but she seems very sensible, and at least when put against some of the caricatures that were in this movie, the president was a total kind of like a Donald Trump in reverse kind of thing, a politician who wants to go into TV or movies.
Who used to be on TV though? That's the thing.
Yeah, used to be on TVs, went to the presidency, now wants to do movies. And of course the God, what was his name? Wembley.
The Andy Serkis character.
Yeah, the Andy Serkis character. But Will, we've talked about this movie a lot. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up and ship it off to rom-com land? I think the movie in general, I think the movie's a fun movie to go see. A little bit long. I think there's quite a few laughs in here. The chemistry between the two leads is really good. If you don't like Seth Rogen, just one thing I could say is this is a toned down version of Seth Rogen. I think it's a palatable version. Yeah,
I mean, this isn't a Judd Apatow film, so yeah. I think a lot of times when we think of Seth Rogen, we kind of think of the Apatow-Rogen combination makes a certain chemistry. But I'd push back that, of course, like in this case, the Jonathan Levine, Seth Rogen is a different formula that's made from some of the same ingredients, but comes out tasting just a little bit. I think,
it's a little bit tastes better to me anyway. But again, mileage will vary.
Yeah, this is a romantic comedy that I think people that don't typically like romantic comedies might enjoy because it's a little less twee than some of those can be. But I think that if you do like romantic comedies, you're going to feel some of the familiar stuff that you're looking for here. So all in all, I think that this is a film that is definitely worth seeing. It's just it's not a great film, but it's definitely a very good watchable. It goes down smooth. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, that brings us to a section of the show to plug a movie or some TV series or something special, a trailer somehow related to movies or visual arts. Will, what do you have for us this time?
Oh man. One that I would like to plug is one that you can see. I don't think I've plugged. Sometimes I forget, like, man, what have we plugged recently? We haven't plugged anything in a hot minute because Avengers last week. So I have not yet talked about Guava Island, which is a film that you can watch on Amazon right now. It's an Amazon Prime exclusive. So if you use Amazon to ship things for you, you probably have Prime, which means you can watch this movie for free right now. And it is a 55-minute film, which is a very, very appealing to me.
That's one positive thing that might get me to watch it.
This is the latest film by Donald Glover, a.k.a. Childish Gambino, who you may remember from Community, who you remember as Lando Calrissian in Solo. You'll remember from This Is America Video and from TV's Atlanta. Well, he plays this guy named Denny, who's this musician and dock worker on this island that could be paradise. If it weren't for the fact that the workers have to work pretty much every day of the week and they can't really enjoy it. Of course, he and his love interest, Rihanna, are sort of at odds at how to deal with that particular aspect of their life. And they then also come at odds with some of the controlling, like, factory owners and corporate people on the island who definitely want the workers to stay in one spot and to not celebrate at this upcoming music festival. It's short, gets in, gets out quickly. It's a musical is another thing to add about it. It features several of Childish Gambino, which is the musical alias of Donald Glover, uses several of his songs from the last few releases, including This Is America and Summertime and a few others, as set pieces to sort of tell the story of him interacting with the workers. You don't get a chance to really explore the characters too much. There's only so many minutes in this movie, but I liked it quite a bit. It had a message. It got in, it told that message, and it got out pretty quickly. It's called Guava Island, and it's a pretty damn enjoyable watch.
Yeah, I've been seeing this one hanging around in my Netflix feed, and I just haven't had a chance to get on it yet. But I will. I'm sure I will, especially at 55 minutes. You can sneak that in where, you get that time of night, like it's getting late. You probably should get to bed. You're trying to decide what to do. Should I watch something? And not enough time for a movie. So that's a perfect time to sneak in like a 55-minute movie like Guava Island, and to sneak in something that I'm going to plug as well. I'm also watching something on Netflix. It's the Our Planet series. I don't know if anybody has been watching this. This is the David Attenborough narrated nature series that's on Netflix right now called Our Planet. I guess this thing was 4 years in the making, but it's 8 episodes, and it covers a kind of a wide swath of kind of ecosystems around the world, from Africa, South America, the seas. Just what's striking to me about this, first of all, David Attenborough's narration is fantastic. You can listen to him do anything. But in every episode, there's so many like jaw-dropping scenes that were photographed, and you wonder how the hell did they get some of these shots that they got. I mean, did they put these animals like in a controlled tank and film them, or what? Like, what's going on? But no, they put camera people, professionals out in the field for years at a time. In one case, and this is in the special features. There's a lot of special features at the end here, where they put these guys out in like these little tiny closet-sized shacks in the middle of the Siberian like wilderness with some like trap cameras, they're called, like motion sensitive cameras, and to capture like a Siberian tiger in the wild. And they've got over like a year and a half or 2.5 years, I forget what it was, they got a few scenes of this tiger in the wild. It's just astounding what they did, and it's beautiful. And also, I mean, it does have that environmental message that these wild areas that we're seeing in here are declining, and it's a bit sobering. It's very scary to see it. It's it will, I don't know if it will spur any action, but I think it's good for awareness, that people understand what the effects we're having on the animals of the world. So anyway, it's called Our Planet. I would highly recommend it if you have time. These episodes are like 50 minutes long each. Again, they're perfect to like just put on when you don't have time for a 2-hour Seth Rogen comedy. You can watch 50 minutes of beautifully voiced David Attenborough and amazing animal footage.
Right on. I know those always feature such. I haven't had a chance to watch them, but I know that a big part of them is the cinematography, which I'm sure is just stunning, right?
Fantastic. Yeah. So that's it for this week. We've covered a lot. We covered a lot of Disney movie news, the Long Shot movie, our plugs. Will, we're going to have to sign off. I want to thank, first of all, we have a couple of people joining us in chat. Sammy W, thanks, and Bobby Miller, a couple of regulars that we can always count on to come in the chat. See you guys next week. Also, Will, how can people interact with you online?
Absolutely. There's a lot of different ways you can interact with me online, probably too many because I need to put my damn phone down more often, but you can find me on Twitter. I'm at whatever cove. You can find me on Facebook. I'm William Lindis. Just send me a message so I think you're not a bot. And you can find me on Letterboxd, letterboxd.com, which is a place where people collaborate on their movie reviews and movie lists. I post there quite a bit, and I would love to see what you're seeing and hear your thoughts about the things that you're seeing. So just look for me by name there as well.
Very good. And you can find me, Jim, on Twitter at JJP Out West. That's all one word, JJP Out West on Twitter, or on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico. And of course, you can always check out our website at www.moviebearspodcast.com. Find our YouTube channel to check out all of our videos that are up there that we've recorded. And also wherever you get your podcasts, that's where you're going to find us. If you already have not found us. So, Will, I think we're going to have to sign off. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you again next week with Detective Pikachu, I think. Right? Is that it? Did I get it right?
Detective Pikachu is the next one we're seeing. I know we do have some travel happening next week as well, so that may interfere with the normal schedule. And so I don't know if we're going to be reviewing it next week or if we're going to have a fill-in show and do Detective Pikachu afterwards. But either way, see that one this weekend and come back to us very soon so you can hear our thoughts.
Yeah, join our chat and talk about Detective Pikachu. Okay, everybody. We'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.